Welcome back, everybody. Here we go again. Lots of good NFL news to talk about, but today's episode might be a little bit more salacious, a little more not safe for work than usual. That's not a promise, that's a warning. So, I don't even have a cold open. We got a lot to talk about today, and it's less about the preseason play and more about just what the heck craziness is going on around the league. Trust me, you're not going to miss this. Welcome to Shut Up Football, where we talk about all things football. I am Jeff Stoltzfus, your host. That is Kevin. Sorry, I haven't had my coffee yet this morning. It's slowly trickling into me to wake me up. Today we are talking about so many interesting things. The NFL just sacked the Pro Bowl. I mean, we saw all that coming, didn't we? Thoughts on that? The Browns have just named a starter. And certainly I have thoughts about that, but that is nothing compared to what is going on online and what is going on in Cleveland. Their thoughts are far and away more fascinating than my own. The 49ers owner, Jed York, was arrested for trying to pay for Trailer Park Strange. Oopies. Let's not make that mistake again. There's a lot to say about that. And Cam Scadaboo is apparently pissing off his teammates. And yeah, I'm not surprised. All right, let's get to the Pro Bowl first and foremost, because it's the most important news of the week. Oh my gosh, the Pro Bowl is no mo. It was announced yesterday, actually. Came flying out at the end of the night by the NFL. Time of death, 5 years ago. Will we miss it? More like, will we notice, to be honest. I don't want to badmouth things just to badmouth them, but it's just not competitive. It hasn't been competitive for a very long time, and it really has just felt like a huge waste of time. Does anybody watch the Pro Bowl? I think I actually did at some point far long ago when I was sick. It's just not a real thing. But anyway, nobody wants to get hurt in a meaningless game. That's part of the problem. That affects their ability to get paid. That affects contracts. So it's either play lesser football or play a meaningless, crappy game. I'd rather watch preseason. I'd rather watch the draft. I might even rather watch the combine. I don't know where you guys are on that, but that's about where I am. And I don't watch all of the combine, but I do watch a little bit. I don't watch any of the Pro Bowl. It's just, I don't know how to describe it in a way that can be conveyed properly. It's like, I don't know, it's like when you're a kid and you play dress up. It doesn't feel like a real thing. The Pro Bowl itself has been around since 1951, so it's been around for a long time. It's like any human, probably getting to the end of its age anyway. 4 years ago, they moved from a tackle game to flag, which I think was kind of the big signaler that this thing was on its way out. But I understand why they made the change at the time. Like I said, no one wants to get hurt. They were looking for ways to innovate. Then they moved to a skills competition, which actually was my suggestion as well, too. Maybe take it from a game and turn it into something that was fun. You know, people seem to really like when, like say at the combine, when the quarterbacks throw as hard as they can at a wall or something. I think people like the skills competition of who can throw the farthest, who can kick the farthest, whatever. But even that kind of never really elevated above feeling like a Nickelodeon show. It was just kind of, it didn't seem like anything worthy of our time. So that didn't help. But that was kind of the last gasp of trying to figure out some way to innovate, some way to change, some way to make it slightly more interesting without actually being a game. It was a good attempt. I do think it was a good attempt. It just wasn't a successful one. But they are still going to select Pro Bowlers. So They're going to attend a celebration in Los Angeles in February, which I can only assume somehow involves Oz the Mentalist. The change is there will be no more substitutions. Sorry, alternates. I'm treating them like equal or Splenda. No more alternates. So there are 88 players being named to the Pro Bowl, 44 for each conference. There's no more alternates. And alternates is kind of where we got into the problem to begin with. So I'll get to that in a second. But the ratings have dropped consistently, like every year. Over the last 5 years or so, they've gone down from 6 million views to 2 million. 2 is pathetic. That's well below preseason games and the draft itself. So it's one of their biggest dogs, as it were. Hey, did you see the Pro Bowl? That is not a thing anyone has ever said. Not even avid football fans. It's lost all luster. It's lost all meaning at this point. And I mean, what is being a Pro Bowler? Being a Pro Bowler at this point is about as meaningful as being a Pro Bowler. It's not special anymore. Guys don't want to do it. They're being selected kind of means nothing. And in fact, a lot of the guys who are being selected to be Pro Bowlers deny it, or maybe that's not the word, but they don't go to the games. They just say, nah, I'm good. And then it leads to the alternates going in, which helped make it even less special. In 2023, Tyler Huntley was named as a Pro Bowler as the AFC's fourth alternate. So that's kind of when things really started to go off the hinges. He only started in 4 games. Not great. And then last year, which I really think was kind of the final nail in the coffin, as it were, Shedeur Sanders was named to the Pro Bowl, and he was a 6th alternate. It was head-scratching to me to see a guy go who didn't play a full season and who didn't throw more touchdowns than interceptions. And yet there he was standing at the Pro Bowl like, hey, everybody, look what I earned. What led you to this moment? Because whatever it is a flawed system. Per the CBA, the players actually got paid for Pro Bowl appearances and are supposed to be paid for Pro Bowl appearances through 2030. So I'm really kind of curious where that money goes, because the NFL was paying $4 million per year just for the players, because there was a whole set of money when it was a game that was played. There was a whole set of money that went to the winners. It was like $96,000 if you won the Pro Bowl. And then it was like $40-ish thousand per player if you lost. So you still got paid just to attend, but there was a minor incentive monetarily to go to the game, to play in the game, but not really, because if you think about it, all the best players are making multi-millions of dollars anyway. The amount of money they were getting to go to the Pro Bowl would have meant so much more to a lot of these lower rung of the roster kind of guys. So the money didn't really move the needle. But I am curious where that money goes now, because if they were paying $4 million, that's got to account, I would think, for alternates, because even if you say no, you were still somehow getting, not prorated, but a portion of it or something, just for being selected. So if you're just going to go sit in an audience and watch whatever show they decide to put together, I am curious, how does that work monetarily? So haven't found that out yet, but I will be curious to see what turns out of that, what Pablo will find out. I think it says something that the viewership for the NFL is really at an all-time high, but the viewership for the Pro Bowl was at an all-time low. That's looking, everyone loves metrics. The NFL had to have been looking at that and just think, we need to find a way to use this thing up. What it is right now is not helping us in any way. And good riddance to the Pro Bowl, and hello to whatever the NFL turns this into, because they haven't said that much yet about what this ceremony is going to involve. And I'm really curious. There's a lot of ways they could go. It's wide open. I'd like to see what they propose for the future. Spoiler alert, though, I won't be watching that either. I mean, I'll be curious to see, but I can catch clips later. That's kind of the problem. We live in a world of clips and online stuff. And hey, if anything actually important happens, I'll just find it on Bluesky or Threads or whatever. Somebody will make a video about it. Somebody, and then we'll just watch that. I guess the only way I'd really pay attention to it if it happened, was if it was interesting in the moment. Is I guess I'd watch if like Will Smith showed up as his character from Concussion and just bitch slapped 1 in 4 players. That's a CTE joke, y'all. Yeah, 1 in 4. If you don't get that, you haven't been watching news about concussions. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson, because that's really what the heat of the meat of this episode is. Deshaun Watson has been named the starter of the Browns. Holy crap. Did anyone see this coming? I bet some of you did. But it's not sitting well with a lot of people. Did anyone outside of Deshaun Watson himself actually want this? Because Deshaun Watson is already on the downward curve of his abilities and his career. And this is by his own admission. This is something he said. You're not getting the same guy anymore. Well, that's not great, because the guy that we thought we were getting didn't look good last time. Fans are reacting to this. This is not just me saying, I hate this pervert. Let's take a look. The good people of Cleveland, of which I know very few, let's take a look at what they're up to. Yeah. If you can see this as you're watching the live stream of the video portion here, this is what's going on in Cleveland this week. I'm going to read the post. Some of the Cleveland Browns, someone from the Cleveland Browns can read. It's not me. Someone from the Cleveland Browns just came down and removed these signs from the Jim Brown statue outside the stadium. Fans are clearly not happy with the Deshaun Watson starting quarterback news. If you look at the signs they put, poor Jim Brown too. Even his statue doesn't deserve this. He was a fun guy. They're putting signs up that say $280 million, 27 plus victims, and that is true. That's the ones we know about. 0 supporters, no regrets. That's actually a good thing to pause on. No regrets. When Deshaun Watson was up at the podium or lectern this week talking about how the Browns fans booed him when he got injured the other year, and he'll never forget that. And hey, look, we shouldn't cheer for injuries, even to bad people. That's not really exactly how karma works or is supposed to work. I get it. It's kind of fucked up. You shouldn't be cheering for injured people. But he also came out at this news presser and said he has no regrets in life. None? You don't have 27 plus regrets? You don't have... Like, come on, man. That's pretty tone deaf if you ask me. So, yeah, no regrets, no regrets for Deshaun Watson. And then other signs said Cleveland is done with the Haslams, which is fair. They've had a fair shake at this, a fair run. Permanent damage to the city and franchise, which is saying something because they've done a lot of kooky things in the last few years. But the Browns as a franchise is pretty storied. You know, it's hard to remember at this point what the Browns once were. I vacillate sometimes on making a video about this because I do enjoy NFL history. And the Browns at one point really were just a venerated franchise. They have an interesting history, but you wouldn't know it. Not these days. For as old as I am, I sure haven't seen the Browns win much at all, let alone playoff games. I'm thinking of even when I was younger and really started getting into football, like the only name that pops into my head all of a sudden is Kelly Holcomb. My God, that's not a name anyone else out there probably knows. So, yeah, there's a lot of these signs going up around the city. This is not the only one. Let me pop this one down. Somebody else, well, presumably somebody else, possibly the same person, posted this one. Seen this pervert? Boo him out of Cleveland. Enough is enough. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're well beyond this. So, fair point. Um, I do get that. You know what? Boo him when he's healthy. That I applaud. In case I was unclear about that earlier. Boo the crap out of this man as a human being. Let's just not really cheer too much about the injuries. This is not Philly. This is Cleveland. Unless a lot of people left Philly and moved to Cleveland and became Browns fans. Then that's fine. There's probably a few. But this is about how the tone is right now in Cleveland. If you are to believe what you're seeing with your eyes, maybe there are some Browns fans, you let me know, who actually want to see Deshaun Watson start for your team. But that has got to be a very small subset. Like, what is the upside of Watson? First of all, you can't say that this is just the Haslams committing to the contract that they gave Watson. I don't believe that. I don't believe even the Haslams at this point care about that contract. The money is gone. They basically lit it on fire. They're desperate to win. Look at their roster. They're just so thirsty for any hope, like Cleveland Browns fans. Shedeur, in case you haven't heard, is a Pro Bowler. Right? That's got to be worth something. They don't just name people to the Pro Bowl. So the real problem here is that Shedeur Sanders did nothing this offseason to win the job. That would have been the best case scenario. We wouldn't even be talking about this right now if Shedeur came in and showed some glimmer in this offseason or in this preseason to new head coach Todd Monken to say, look, you're better off with me. Clear-cut case. Even forget clear-cut. Give me hope. Give me a glimmer. Just give me something. Says, I'm going to be your best option. He didn't show that. It wasn't there. But I do think, fuck it, give him a shot. Because I think the people of Cleveland can get behind that. For as much as they can get behind either option going into this season. I don't think they have a lot of good options here. But, you know, a lot of times, as you love young dudes or rookies, you know, the unknown is sexy. And I would hope that, at least for this season, though you do know a little with Shedeur, just give him the keys, man. Let him go. Let's see what he can do in this year, because the odds are very, let's say, the deck is stacked against him being the starter next year or the future. I don't see that. I think that ship has also sailed. But come on, let's just see what we can get out of him. Another way to look at this too, and this is how dire things are, think about this for a second. If they were to cut both Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders today, would they start for any other team in the NFL right now? Never mind the getting ramped up to the new offense or whatever. Just imagine, would they even have a chance? Let's say it was the beginning of the offseason. Would they have a chance to be a starter on any other team? I can't even... The first team I think of is the Browns. Like, doesn't make sense. I don't even know if they have a shot, either one of them, in Atlanta. The Falcons have bad choices as well, but they have more going on than this. I don't know. It feels like if you look at this roster, I also have bigger questions about just how they're building this here, because yes, when you have no clear-cut quarterback, you want to take shots. You need to take shots at a quarterback. And the Browns have done that. I will give them that. I will applaud them for trying. That is more sometimes than some bad owners will even allow their teams to do. But the problem is they have nothing but scratchers. They're not Powerball players. They're just buying scratchers. Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Taylon Green was the most recent one. I mean, at this point, people are talking about, will they cut Gabriel out of all four quarterbacks that they have? Because they think Taylon Green has such potential as a developmental guy that maybe someday he could show something. Even though he's a sixth-round draft pick, they don't want to cut him, because what if he can't come back to the practice squad? You know, can they stash Green? Well, who cares? Who cares if you stash Green? Well, who cares about a sixth-round developmental prospect if you're just going to add another quarterback next year? You keep just throwing guys in. It's just a pile of bodies. It doesn't mean anything. Now they're saying Gabriel is most likely to be cut. And I think that's probably true. And that's just a waste of a third round pick. Dylan Gabriel was a third round pick. And third round picks are still pretty valuable. That's about I think a 70% chance that they make the roster and contribute to the team usually. So you could have gone, and if he didn't look like a starter to you, and he did not to me, in that third round that they drafted him, they could have had safety Xavier Watts, running back Bashal Tutin, Cam Scadaboo, who we'll get to in a bit, or tons of picks at the O-line. There are a lot of guys that have value. Third round picks are valuable. And if you're just going to cut him 2 years later, that is a waste. That is a huge mistake. Or trade the pick. The pick itself is valuable, even if you don't use it. Gabriel coming out of college, I liked him. He had some good years, some good tape, but you knew he was a career backup. I know nothing compared to actual scouts. I'm just some dude who watches football and plays fantasy, and I could have told you he's a career backup. At best, he's a Colt McCoy. At best. And that has nothing to do with his size. That's his skill set. Size does not help that, but you never thought he was going to be your future. I didn't. Did they really? I mean, did they really? Because if they're taking 6th-round shots on Taylor Green, I don't think they ever really did. Did they learn after the fact? I don't know that they have that capability. My other question here regarding the Browns is, has their desperation for a quarterback screwed them out of getting one? You know, when you load up with so many of these lotto picks, if you want to call them that, have they loaded up with so many they're missing out? Now, they couldn't afford Malik Willis this offseason, and I don't think he's the future for any franchise either. But he is probably an improvement for him if they would have gotten him. They couldn't afford him. They just didn't have the cap space. And that's not because of their sheer number. That is because of the Deshaun Watson contract itself. But they never even tried for Kyler Murray, who got very low money to go to the Vikings. They never tried. As far as I've seen, I've looked into it. Like, why did they not try? I think Kyler Murray would certainly have been an upgrade over all of them. And you can argue he's not the future too. But for what he costs, the Vikings maybe have upgraded and fixed their this year's quarterback starter problem so much faster than the Browns. So much easier than the Browns. They gave up little to nothing to make it happen. That's how fast you can get lapped. And that's how you lose good players along the way while you're fumbling and trying to figure this out. And Myles Garrett gets sick of it and wants to go to another team. Good God, man, you got to figure this position out. And I'm not even saying you need a top 5 guy in the league. I am the guy who's always pounding the table saying, surprisingly, I think you need a top 15 guy in the league and you can go compete every single year. I'm still thinking, I'm of the sort to think that Trevor Lawrence is just fine enough to win a Super Bowl. Bo Nix is just fine. Like these guys who are fringe top 15, and you can debate all day about who that is, they're fine. I've seen plenty of good teams who are built around a competent quarterback win Super Bowls. It happens all the time. You don't need a top 5 guy. You get enamored with Patrick Mahomes, but then you immediately discount Jalen Hurts for some reason. And then you go back to, well, what about Josh Allen? What has Josh Allen won yet? Like, yes, you need to solve this position, but no, you don't actually need a top 5 guy. You need a top of the league, top half guy, and build a good team around that. And the Browns just can't get that done. So I'm very sorry for Browns fans this week, but I know that it's also very limited. There's no way Deshaun Watson sees a full season for his play, for his health, for any reason. It's not possible in my world. If I were to go on Kalshi, and I don't recommend you do, and were to bet on Shadur, I would bet on Shadur to start more games than Watson easily. Because Shedeur, for as much as this is outrageous news for a multitude of reasons, Shedeur could be the starter by week 2. I truly believe that. For any reason. I remember even just a couple of years ago, now maybe it was more years ago than that, I'm pretty old, the Panthers, I forget who they started the year even with, but they're like, this is our guy, this is our starter, and by halftime, they brought in Jake Delhomme, who was not a thing yet. And then they won that game, and they're like, all right, he's our guy now. It happens. It happens quick. So, I'm sorry for the Browns. They have too many bad options. I don't know what Browns fans are cheering for this year other than diarrhea led us to take them all out. Let's move on. I talked way too much about the Browns, surprisingly. I guess I had thoughts. The 49ers owner had us a much more interesting situation. 49ers owner Jed York was arrested. Oh, Jetty boy. He was arrested for soliciting a prosty, which is what I call a prostitute. I have a lot of nicknames. So Jedediah contacted a known prosty website multiple times to solicit sex. Because sometimes they don't return your emails quickly, you know? You gotta poke them a little. I don't know what the reason is. How did they catch him? Well, first off, it was apparently a human trafficking task force that's super efficient and just so happens to operate near his hometown in Ohio. Oopies! They're like news stories about this famous task force and lives next door to him. Oh, buddy. He was using a pseudonym, so I don't know how they caught him. He was using the pseudonym Joe. Montana. That's how they got him. No, I'm kidding. It was Joe, but it was just Joe. Jed, which is wildly different than Joe. Jed agreed to meet with an undercover officer in a trailer park in West Palestine, Ohio. He wanted to see her Gaza Strip. That doesn't actually make sense. That's not a good joke, but I tried. I like how they called a mobile home, by the way. It was a trailer park. It's a trailer. You can call it a mobile home, but it's not going anywhere. It's got a mailbox. It's pretty fixed. Never seen an actual mobile home get mobile. I'm picking nits. The report said that he was to pay $160 for 1 hour, which I assume is really 10 minutes of sex, 10 minutes of crying, and then like 40 minutes of bitching about Brandon Ayuk. I see $160 now. It first came out as $140. Again, does that matter? I mean, not really. Either way, it ain't much. That's barely a week's worth of groceries. So $160, I mean, not in this economy. Motherfucker brought a coupon. Brings a coupon to a prosty. 9:30 a.m. is when police stopped him. Dude rolled out of bed ready to rock. I realize people are at work by 9, maybe 8. But to me, that's early. It's embarrassing for Jed. Divorced recently or getting divorced. 2 kids that are not little but not old. It's embarrassing for him. It's embarrassing for the Niners, sure. You don't want to be the sort of guy who pays for sex. Have some self-respect and beg for it like other men. But I may differ here on some of the people who are going to come down on Jed York. I actually applaud him. I do. I'm being serious. Because he didn't make unwanted advances to any of the women in his organization. He didn't Deshaun Watson a masseuse. He sought a professional in a really weird place. He's a job creator. He was just trying to get he's trying to trickle down some economics. And as Confucius said, we all get horny. So I actually, though prostitution, they say, is not a victimless crime, I'm honestly better off with him seeking out a prosty than making advances unwantedly at other people who were just close to him. I know that's a low bar. That's an extremely low bar. Can't we do better? I don't know that we can. Not all of us. I mean, maybe this guy because he's worth $500 million, but money doesn't mean good Good character. So, Jed York was charged with 2 misdemeanors here. And this is sort of interesting. He's engaging in prostitution, clearly, and then possession of criminal tools. Possession of criminal tools. It's a pretty mysterious charge. Like, what is that? Like, I came up with a lot of ideas for what that could be, a lot of jokes. None of them I am going to use today. That's because that is a little confusing, and probably what I came up with is wildly inappropriate. I've done enough. But it also could have just been a burner phone. Apparently, burner phones, which even journalists buy, they're not illegal. But if you then commit a crime on them, they can use this as an add-on misdemeanor charge. So 2 counts, misdemeanor for him. The prostitution charge has since been pleaded down. I'm not great with wording. Pleaded down to disorderly conduct. Contact? You know what? He never got to contact, so maybe take a couple bucks off. It was pleaded down to disorderly conduct. So he paid a $1,150 fine. That's on top of the $160 that he was going to pay for the sex. He didn't get that back. He still had to give that money up. So in total, this whole escapade cost over $1,300, which is a lot. I mean, do you know how much sex you could buy for that? He also spent 1 day in jail, which is a great place to find all the sex that you want, and also all the sex that you don't want. Thank God, said Niners head coach Kyle Shanahan, as nobody gives a shit about his car crash anymore. Moving on, the final piece we got today, and man, we just didn't have anything in the way of interesting news, to be honest, coming out of actual play, unless you guys want to bring something up. Cam Skattebo, the last piece of news that caught my attention. Cam Skattebo started a fight with teammates. Oh, Cammy boy. So the New York Daily News reported that Skattebo started a fight when he came dangerously close to taking out the legs of multiple defensive backs when he slid down following reception. So he didn't even actually hit anybody in this particular instance. He just came close to it. But that pissed off his defensive teammates because he already had been up to shenanigans earlier in the week when he also ran over linebacker Zaire Barnes during a previous practice where the defense was not allowed to hit. So if you've seen Cam Skattebo, not when he's ripping his shirt off, but when he's running into people, big dude, trucking people, like that's a lot of beef coming at you at high speed. So if he's hitting people when they can't hit back, not a good look. And I can understand why they would get upset. I believe one of his offensive linemen already came out and said this is a bullshit report. I don't know that that's true at all because John Harbaugh, Coach John Harbaugh, guy who actually is there, also said that he basically said it happened. He said that Skattebo has, what did he call it? His energy is like an infectious disease. And he basically called him out for saying both that can be good or bad. Let's call this one bad. And I would agree. I have often thought of infectious diseases when I've looked at Cam Skattebo. If you remember Cam's running style, by the way, even when he's not pissing off his teammates, it's pretty aggressive, which usually you would like in a running back. But he also fractured his tibia, dislocated his ankle last year in his limited time. He was doing backflips like crazy. He did a backflip recently coming out to say, look, I'm fine, and then stumbled and almost took himself out again. And it seems like the overall thesis behind this particular news article was less about Cam being hurt or hurting people or whatever. It's just that his teammates are getting sick of him already. And maybe that part is the BS part. You know, everything else seems to check out. I don't know. Maybe it's just a temporary thing. People fight all the time in practices. So I'm going to file this one under the no big effing deal. But I am also getting a little sick of Cam Skattebo. I'm not a big fan of bros. And he's got the stink of 20,000 bros on him with all his shenanigans. I think that can wear on some of the older dudes, the vets, they have families, they're professionals, you know, and they're they take themselves and maybe their craft, if we can call it that, very serious at a certain point, and in comes dude, I don't know, doing whippets in the corner, whatever he's doing, running through drywall just for fun. And I can understand how when it comes to injuring or possibly injuring teammates, especially when it's supposed to be no contact, can really frustrate them or get them upset. But I warn Cam, you really got to be careful here. It might now be time, this exact second, to start to grow up a little bit. And what I mean by that is he runs like he never wants to see a full season. That's one thing. That's a style. That's fine. I have nothing against that. But running backs only make good money on their second contract. So show that you can get there. Be a good teammate. And also recognize that Harbaugh has complete control of this team now. He did not draft you. And they just brought in Najee Harris. So just kind of get a little self-awareness and kind of realize that maybe you need to calm down a little bit, at least in preseason or practice with your teammates. Basically, when your teammates speak, listen. That's all I'm saying. Take care of yourself. Take care of your brothers. And stop pissing people off and acting like a jackass. Is that too much? Is that rude to say? I don't give a shit. All right, so Cam, be right. I mean, I don't know. Poor guy already plays like he has CTE. I'm hoping for good things for you. Not for the Giants. Screw them. I'm an Eagles fan. But I just want people to get along. Can we all just get along? Isn't that what Colin Kaepernick said, or was that Rodney King? Somebody said, let's get along. I don't know. Screw that guy, whoever said it. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. That's all I have for news in the NFL. As I said, some things have changed around here. Some things are changing around here. I don't know 100% what's going to happen to the live stream or the podcast as we move into the football season. I want to still keep it going, obviously, but I'm not 100% sure that 11 a.m. on a Thursday is going to be the time that the live stream portion will be happening still. If and when that does change, I will let you know, because I want you to be aware, and so you can find me and so you can interact with me and tell me your thoughts on the season, and we can talk together. But like I said, the season is nearly upon us, and I am going to have to shift gears with a lot of my time for the NFL Roast, which will be back. If you have not seen the NFL Roast, you should, because like I said, that's where I'm going to put a lot of my resources and time. So if you've never seen one yet, go back, check out one from last season. That is a staple of this channel, and that's where I mostly disappeared during the season. But I'm going to see, at least for a while, if maybe I can continue to do both. I've even thought about doing other things like live streaming during games to call certain games. I don't know if anyone has any interest in that. It's just a thing I considered. So let me know. Leave a comment. I would probably only consider like Thursday night games, though, or Eagles or Ravens, as I am interested in birds. Apparently, I'm interested in birds. So anyway, thanks for joining me this morning, guys and gals. And I will catch you real soon. Say hi to your moms for me. Peace.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.